they sent me that's our scoreboard.
You're up first.
Down in Savannah last weekend. What a great town.
Oh, I love Savannah. I was there one time. It was great. They have a big St. Patty's. That's
Oh, yeah.
yeah. You heard, yeah.
They were ready. We went to, we got down there. Everywhere we looked, it was talking about SCAD. Said all this stuff about SCAD. Savannah College of Arts and Design.
Oh, yeah.
We started in 1977. Heather kept saying, well, we got to find out more about this. So she found the place where they have their intro thing. We went, it was fascinating. A woman was an elementary teacher in 1977 in Atlanta and decided that people didn't know how to teach arts and design. So she decided to start a university. Went to her parents, who mortgaged their house, everything they had. They just probably paid everything off for her to start this school. They have 16,000 students now. It is the biggest art school in the
It's
country.
amazing.
We all ready here?
Oh, they're downstairs. I don't have mine up here. No, they're on the table downstairs.
Oh, Michelle, you need one?
Yeah, oh, yeah. Oh, thank you. Would you have one?
Oh, God. How many do you want?
No, but I don't want to take yours.
We ready? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Abington High School Board meeting for Wednesday, March 15th. Would everyone please rise and pledge the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. O'Day, would you do roll call, please?
Mr. Abdullah?
Here.
Mr. Azar?
Here.
Mr. Fleming? Mrs. Henderson? Mrs. Karam?
Here.
Mr. Medensky?
Here.
Mr. Robeson?
Here.
Mrs. Tierney?
Here.
Mr. Acker?
Here, and I would add Mr. Fleming is out of town on business.
Okay. 8 present.
Can we have a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting?
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call?
Mr. Abdullah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Medensky?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
8-0.
Can we have a motion to approve the minutes for the board meeting of March 1st
And February 15th.
and February 15th? Thank you very much.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Medensky?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Abdullah?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
8-0.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we have, are there any board reports? Ms. Attorney?
Yes, I have one report. The policy committee met on March 1st, a Wednesday. It was our very first meeting. We are discussing the board procedures and revising some of our policies. We will be giving out these policies in our next meeting, and we will have 2 meetings that we will have 2 readings for these meetings, which we will be discussing.
Thank you very much. With that, can we have the student reports for our two awesome student representatives, Jordan Colombo and Aiden Lane?
Good evening. The high school is already preparing for next year's courses. Teacher recommendations are due this Friday, March 17th, and students will start making their request on March 21st. CTC applications are starting, and students will have the opportunity to shadow during March 27th to the 29th. Our junior class will be holding an Easter Bunny breakfast on April 1st from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. at the high school. All proceeds will go to the prom fund. The sophomore class will be hosting Spring Fling also on April 1st. The dance will go from 7 to 10 p.m. Tickets will go on sale next week. The senior class held an annual pasta dinner on February 21st. Over $1,000 were raised and donated to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society in memory of Ashley Illman, class of 2003. The NEPA Ozzy of the Mind regional competition was held Saturday, February 25th at Pocono Mountain West High School. About 50 teams from across our region participated. All teams from Abington Heights will be advancing to the state finals on April 1st at Lock Haven University. And finally, Nick Booth, a senior, was named a Coca-Cola Scholar for the class of 2023, receiving a $20,000 scholarship. Nick was chosen from a selective pool of applicants over 91,000 students, being one of the 150 Coca-Cola Scholars nationwide for this cycle. We are so proud of our comments.
Our winter sports are still going strong and staying alive even in the postseason. The boys basketball team won the PIAA District 2 Class 5A championship at Mohegan Sun Arena on Friday, March 3rd, defeating West Scranton 60-38. In the first round of the PIAA Class 5A state tournament, our boys hosted and defeated Merle Dobbins 67-56 to advance to the Sweet 16. Second round of the PIAA 5A state tournament game is tonight at Hazleton Area High School versus Pocono Mountain West. The game is scheduled to have tipped off at 6 o'clock p.m. The score is currently 26-20, almost at half. Our girls basketball team took a trip to the arena, however fell short to Pittston area 36-32 in the PIAA District 2 Class 5A championship game at Mohegan Sun Arena on Saturday, March 4th. They were still able to advance to the first round of the state tournament and hosted Archbishop Ryan and won 59-36 to advance to the Sweet 16. The second round of the state tournament game is tonight at Martz Hall in Pottsville, PA, where they face the number 1 seed from District 1, Westchester Ruston, at 6:30 p.m. Our varsity wrestling team won the PIAA District 2 Class 3A individual championships at Liberty High School on Friday, March 3rd, and Saturday, March 4th. 4 wrestlers qualified for states: Luke Sirianni, Brian Hurd, Austin Smith, and Caleb Marzolino. Senior Luke Sirianni finished second place in the PIAA Class 3A, weighing 107 pounds, and junior Caleb Marzolino finished 8th in Class 3A, weighing 189 pounds. Our swim and dive team had a great time at districts and will be sending Derek Williams to Bucknell University on March 17th to compete in the 50-yard freestyle swimming championship. Ethan Horitz won the District 2/4 sub-regional 3A diving championships at Wilkes-Barre area on Friday, February 25th, and will compete in the PIAA 3A state championships on Saturday, March 18th at Bucknell University. Spring sports have officially started and everyone has begun to practice. However, many competitions have been postponed due to weather conditions. Thank you.
Thank you both very much. With that, I'll turn it over to our superintendent, Dr. Schaefer.
Thank you, Mr. Acker. We have 2 presentations for you tonight. Mr. Mirabelli will be presenting first. He'll provide us with a brief presentation regarding the basic education subsidies so we can have a better understanding of all that entails.
If you'll just give me 1 minute to get this over to the other screen. There we go. Full screen. Okay. In light of the governor's recent budget proposal, we have a new governor and a new budget. We thought it'd be a good time to start talking about some of the state revenues that we may see coming in. And we also received some questions about the basic education formula and how that works. So I thought I'd go through some of that with you tonight. And we'll start with just by saying that our state revenues generally make up about 30% of our budget. We are largely funded by local tax dollars, but 30% of a $55 million budget is still a significant dollar amount. So we look into each of the major line items in our state budget. First, of course, is the basic ed subsidy. That's our largest line item, followed by PSERS retirement reimbursement. We pay 100% of PSERS, and then we get 50% of it back from the state. So special education subsidy as well. The state property tax reduction allocation is one where the state provides us approximately $1 million to reduce local tax bills, and we pass that directly on to the taxpayers. Transportation subsidy, again, we pay out 100% of transportation costs and receive approximately 50% back. The same with Social Security. And then we also have what's called the Ready to Learn Block Grant, which it's sort of an extension of the basic ed subsidy, which pays for instructional salaries and things like that. So there was a lot of excitement when the governor proposed his budget to the General Assembly. I believe it was early last week. And it's important to know that this is exactly that, a proposal. I saw some publications which said this is how much your school will be getting, and that couldn't be further from the truth. We do hope that that becomes, everyone agrees, but in this political world, we don't see a lot of agreement all the time. So I just want to caution you when you look at these numbers. The basic ed subsidy, if the governor gets everything he would like, Abington Heights would stand to have an increase of $565,000. Special education subsidy would stand to have an increase of $88,000. Ready to Learn Block Grant would be flat. And then we've listed two other grants here, and there's an asterisk at the bottom. To the best of our ability that we can decipher, it would appear that the governor is proposing sort of a continuation of the mental health and safety and security grants, which were approximately $150,000 each, which we use for mental health professionals, surveillance, and communications, specifically radios. So we would hope that that is renewed for next year. It's not a subsidy, but a grant from the state. And if you'd like to see a more in-depth analysis of this, I've put the link down to the PDE budget, and it is clickable in the board docs. So you can get all the details behind it. You can see what all the other schools are getting. So easy to get to there. The basic ed subsidy here, and there's a lot of print here, but this is just sort of my outline to walk you through. There are three main parts of the basic education subsidy. The biggest part is what's called the base BEF, also known as hold harmless. This is sort of the amount that we got locked into quite a few years ago, and the state says, regardless of what happens in the formula, we won't drop you below this amount, okay? So it's right around, it's a little over $6 million is our hold harmless amount, okay? And I'll show you that in a second. The second is when we talk about the fair funding formula or the basic ed formula, that's this line item in bold, the student weighted distribution. That's the formula driven one, okay? That's the funding formula that has been discussed in the courts recently. And then there's a level up supplement that is not applicable to Abington Heights. That is select schools in the state received level up funding. So we're only talking about base BEF and the student weighted distribution, okay? So we'll put the base aside because we're just locked into that for now until a court or legislative action changes that. So we're only talking about student weighted distribution. And lo and behold, in that calculation, there are three components to that, okay? There's the weighted student count, there's the median household income index, and the local effort capacity index. Again, If you care to look at this, the spreadsheets are extensive, and the link is there where you can follow this whole calculation through. But I'm going to explain it sort of at 10,000 feet to try to just level set. Here's what it looks like. We take our weighted student count, right? So for lack of a better term, it's our enrollment, okay? Our weighted average daily enrollment, okay? It goes through a number of modifications, and you could find those modifications in the spreadsheet linked. But then once we get our enrollment number, we multiply it by the median household income index, okay? And then after we multiply by that, we multiply by the local effort capacity index to come up with what's called the adjusted weighted student count, all right? We take that student count and divide it by the total student count of the state. And that little percentage is our percent of the pie. That when the state comes up with their total number, that percentage, which I'll show you in a second, how that, what the actual numbers are for us, it is whatever the state puts in the pot or in the pie, we get that sliver, okay? So here's what it looks like with real numbers attached to it. Our student weighted count is 3,881. Enrollment's up a little bit, so that's a good thing, okay? But you'll see the next two factors, the median household income index is less than 1. So a number less than 1 reduces your weighted student count. So 0.7669, so basically you're only getting credit for 76% of your weighted student count there, all right? And that's largely based on demographics, things that we cannot control. And then we look at the local effort capacity index, and that's at 0.87. We have another number less than 1. So we get reduced again. So you can see where we go from 3,881 down to a reduced weighted student count of 2,543. So that is the essence of the basic ed funding formula. And the takeaway here is our demographic factors are not kind to us in the basic ed subsidy calculation. That's a lot of information. Does anyone have any questions?
So I can figure out median household income index, but could you explain what the local effort capacity index is?
Can I explain it
In a
well?
short,
So local effort capacity index has to deal with the revenue you've collected locally in totality per household. That's the effort that our taxpayers put in, right? So we take in approximately, I think it was like 32 million on the most recent. And you divide that by the number of households in the district. That's just one of the factors. You then look at personal income, market value, and again, all the spreadsheets are out there, but it's your taxing effort is really what that measures, and I'm not sure why I kicked it into that. But that's what that measure is, and all the specifics, if you click that link, you could see every single modifier there. I was careful not to dive too deep into that because your heads would be on the desk sleeping because I would
Yeah.
bore you to death.
it's further demographic weighting.
Yes, further demographic information for sure.
So just to confirm, because our median income is high, the median household income index is low because in relative to other school districts, we have a higher median income, correct?
Well, here's a comparison of other districts in Lackawanna County, which
Okay.
Demonstrates what you're talking
So
about.
the answer is yes.
Yes, yes,
Thank you.
yes.
And then the effort index is saying if by the state's formula, our local taxing effort were higher, or that would actually help us get more state funds, oddly as that seems.
That's part of it, yes, but there's also your taxing authority. You're like, what can you do?
And by the way, I'm not suggesting we should tax more, I'm just trying to make sure we understand the effect of these things.
Yes, yes, so you've very well understood that and articulated that. Anyone else on basic ed subsidy? So here are a few conclusions. We've already sort of gone through them, but that's how you arrive at your slice of the pie. And I thought, the one thing I didn't point out is our slice of the state of Pennsylvania's pie is 0.0097. So if that comes up on Jeopardy later, you'll know. So then, and there's the math at the bottom, 2,543 divided by the state's total weighted average. And that is what I hope to cover tonight. I did want to announce that PASBO is having their annual sort of state of the budget address on March the 21st, and board members would be welcome to come join us in watching that.
You'll be able to put mine out. Okay. As Maggie's getting that ready, I can't help but think about it. The basic ed subsidy does make your head spin, and as an advocate for public education, I wish no ill will on other school districts, but it's always a little confounding to me that the baseline, the hold harmless number, school districts, and we see plenty of school districts, Abington Heights is one of the few districts in the state that sees continuing enrollment. That's a great thing. And I understand that one of the ways that we could get more money if the legislature cooperated would be some of the school districts that are losing students rapidly, money would be taken out of that hold harmless. And this is just kind of getting into the weeds, but as community members and members of our board, I think it's important to understand what we are hearing right now about revamping the formula and advocating for districts like Abington Heights in different ways in which the formula can be tweaked in order to provide more funding. So I will now step off my soapbox. Ready? Okay, I'm going to provide us with a midpoint goals update. In the beginning of the year, in November, after the first term, I provided our first update on our goals. As I move to the second slide, I always start by talking about focus and excellence, and we don't ever lose that. It is important that we always focus on what matters, and that is our students, our teachers, and our community, and we never, ever compromise our standards of excellence. In fact, we talk about how we accelerate excellence and get ahead, and that's exactly why we talk and update the board and our community on our progress towards our goals. Our first goal is our English language arts goal. I'm not going to read the goals verbatim. It's posted on the website for everybody to see. But what I want to highlight is that in the K2 space, what we saw was growth of 17.1% from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year. That's a trajectory that we want to keep. And I will say this for those of you who may look at these and try to wonder what these numbers mean. This is not interval data, so sometimes that increase may be steeper because in the beginning of the year, certainly our students aren't exposed to learning that they are going to receive in the middle of the year or even at the end of the year. But we want to be able to see that upward trajectory. In grades 3 through 4, we saw a growth of 6.3%, and in grades 5 through 8, an increase of 11.75%. So those are all indicators that we are moving in the right direction. And as excellent organizations do, our teachers and our principals are constantly looking at the students in front of them and the knowledge and information that they generate, and think about ways that we alter our instruction, respond to our students to accelerate that learning. So it just doesn't stop at the goal. Every day we constantly reassess where we're at. And sometimes that means we got to take a step back, like the last 2 days. You know, as a teacher, I remember snow days. And then I always had to, when the kids came back in, do you remember Monday? No, but let's talk about sledding. So we may have to go back a little bit to reintroduce some of these topics. And then on other days and weeks, everybody's hitting the beat and you're just moving along. And that's the ebb and flow and the art and science of teaching that is so wonderful to watch. At the high school, we take a look at grades below 65%. What we saw in the first quarter was 3.7%, which was 44. In the second quarter, we saw an increase to 61, which is 5.2%. But this is a decrease from 27 students last year. And why this may not be the direction that we want to see, I will tell you as a recovering high school principal that oftentimes I see students coming in with that motivation, and then that second quarter, sometimes we hit a little bit of a lull to pick up in the third and in the fourth. So that's something at the high school that we're always thinking about. How are we motivating our students on a daily basis? How are we speaking with our students about what it means to be excellent and what it takes to be excellent, what it takes to be a comment? So that's something that we monitor quarterly. As I move to the math, what we've seen in the K2 space is growth of 18.3% from the beginning to the middle of the year. In grades 3 and 4, we've seen growth of 8%. And then 5 through 8, 14.25%. Again, that's the direction we want to be moving, and we continue to accelerate that and figure out ways in which to respond to our students in order to get the most out of them. And at the high school, similar to what I just talked about, the first quarter grades below 65 in mathematics was 13, which was 1.1%. The second quarter, 37, that's at 3%. This was an increase of 8 students. So again, we're taking a look at this at the high school. We have a 9 mod where we work with our students. We identify students that may need additional assistance, supplemental tutoring. This is a strategy that we will use every single day and continue to work with our students, so we make sure that they're not only successful on standardized assessments, but more importantly, they are prepared for when they graduate to take on whatever it is in front of them, whether that is post-secondary ambitions, trade schools, work, serving our country. Now, I'm going to go to our perceptual goals, and Maggie, I'm going to go to slide 6 right now. In order to be an excellent learner and student, you have to feel safe in school. You have to feel as if you belong. And this year we started tracking perceptual data, asking our students how they like school, how they get along with others, whether they feel safe, whether students treat each other with respect. We follow this data. We work with our students in many of our schools with school-wide positive behavior supports. Our counselors, crisis counselors, and social workers are out and about working with all our students to ensure that our students feel safe they get along with others, and respect one another. And for the most part, there's very little difference in some of these. When I think about students that report that they get along with others and they feel safe, that's almost 9 out of every 10 students. However, when we see things like liking school, 6 out of every 10, and students treating each other with respect, 6 out of every 10, this is something that we know we need to work on through our discussions with our students, our programming, being involved in many of the extracurricular activities that our student representatives talked about. And with that said, I've got a couple asterisks at the bottom, and I say never, rarely, and sometimes. I'm proud to say that we have a very strong program in Abington Heights as a result of the hard work of our teachers, our counselors, our social workers, our crisis counselors. And very few students, I don't even think I saw a percentage over 8%, 3%, 5%, answer these questions never or rarely, okay? So when I say students treat each other with respect, okay, the category that we work on is the sometimes category. How do we go from sometimes to always? Always treating each other with respect. What do you do when you sometimes feel upset with somebody or disrespected? What's the appropriate response to that? How do we work with students? So these are the areas that we focus on and we work on, because this is a leading indicator in my mind for some of the data that I just talked about, ELA, mathematics, post-secondary success. I go to slide 7. The next 2 slides, we're going to talk about some other ongoing projects that I'm not going to go into detail, but besides our academic and social emotional goals, as an organization, we know that we had to improve upon some of our processes, some of our procedures, in order to be more efficient, in order to strive for excellence. Our website, our tech committee has done a fantastic job. There's a lot of things I haven't even put into this that we've done, but we've lifted up the website that we're continuing to work on. We published our first district newsletter. We are working on our second in order to share the successes of our students with the community. We've started a new school messenger, and when I take a look at the data, the messages, the text messages, and the emails that go out, I'm continually amazed by that. For those of you that come to board meetings or watch online, we've started board docs in order to be more transparent about our organization and our business that we hold, and we make sure that everything that we talk about is easily accessible to our families. We've also started school board committees, so once a month you're hearing about all the interworkings of our different committees. Ms. Tierney talked about the policy committee, so we have got a lot of things happening that way. Mr. Robeson's talked about, all the projects that we've done in technology. All of the committees are instrumental to the work that we're doing with these ongoing projects. Curriculum, Dr. Vitale and a large group of teachers have done a fantastic job in lifting up a K-12 mathematics curriculum that they continue to work on and will work on. I'm continually amazed by that work and the motivation and willingness of our faculty members to engage in that. Human resources, we've taken on a lot of things. One of them that I will tell you is we brought the substitutes in-house. So we've done some things to become more efficient, save some funds, and most importantly, get the best substitute teachers in front of our students when needed. School safety, we recently completed our K-12 facility study and have ongoing public sessions and mechanisms for the public to provide us with feedback. We also have worked on school safety in the form of, receiving a grant for a school counselor, receiving a grant for surveillance and video equipment, and then another grant that I will talk about shortly. And finally, in there is developing a budget strategy. How do we mediate our needs with, say, a decreasing pot from the state relative to some others? It all depends on how you look at it. I'd always like us to have more money that way. Looking forward, we have some headwinds and tailwinds for next year. So on slide 10, I've talked about this before, but some of the challenges that we face are the increases in special ed, cyber charter tuition costs, and how they have increased over the last decade relative to special education subsidy. We also received a lot of funds from stimulus, ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. ESSER 2 will be coming off the books this summer, and that's approximately $586,000. The following year, another $800,000. So we know that we have some challenges in front of us, and this is exactly why we have a budget strategy goal. On slide 11, I have a very simple graph, and that is what I spoke about before, is balancing our enrollment, growth, and staffing. We are very fortunate. We are one of few districts in the state to see increasing enrollment. And we're trying to mediate all that we know that we need to provide our students with, say, a dwindling bag of resources. So excellent organizations figure out a different way to find that money, which I'll be talking about a little later. And a little later is this slide, ironically. Tailwinds. One of the ways in which we can get back money is to get back our customers. So when I mentioned to you that we have increasing enrollment, part of that is getting back some of the students that we lost. And I've said this before, and it will never change, is one of the best things to happen in education, and not everybody believes this, is that parents and families had choice, and I believe in choice. And excellent organizations will come to the top. And we've had students leave our district. And we worked really hard to have some conversations with our families about the why. Why did they leave? And what do we need to do to win back their children? And through these efforts, we've seen a pretty dramatic decrease from last year to this year. This time last year, our average was around 137, a rolling 6-month average. Now we're down to 97. But that's 97 students that I'd like to see back in Abington Heights. So we know that, yes, we succeeded in bringing back some of our students that we lost, and we've got a ways to go. But this is a very important metric for us to follow. Some other tailwinds, and Jim mentioned some of it. Mr. Acker would tell me that hope is not a strategy, but I will use the word hope, knowing that it is not a strategy. What is a fact, though, is that this year we did receive $500,000 in extra funding from the state. That was great. We didn't expect that, and we got $500,000 more. In the governor's proposed budget, and this would be in addition to last year's $500,000, we would hope for $565,102. But we know a lot has to happen. But that's a significant tailwind. That changes our trajectory moving forward. In each year, the impact is even more meaningful. In addition, in the governor's proposal, it's proposed another almost $90,000 in special education funding. When I talked about the headwinds, you heard me talk a lot about special education. Yes, we need more money from the state for special education. So I would hope that that happens too. In the beginning of the year, when I provided the update, I talked about we received a $150,000 grant and we allocated it for a school counselor. We received another $150,000 grant that we allocated for school safety, and that was for surveillance systems and building communications. We are awaiting more clarity on the governor's proposed funding, as Mr. Mirabelli mentioned, but I would hope that this continues because Abington Heights will benefit from it. We'll be able to go to stage 2 and purchase more surveillance equipment that we need to provide a more safe atmosphere for our students. We've completed our facility study, and this is going to be used to inform not only our short-term, but our long-term priorities. And this is where we need your help in the community to attend our public meetings, to provide feedback, to tell us what is important to you and what is important to your children. That's data. I don't know why we're breaking our attendance record by tenfold here today, but I'm hoping I can get a lot of good feedback about what you want because that's going to be useful data for us. We found out through the hard work of our business manager, Mr. Mirabelli, that we did receive a SRO grant last week from the state for the 23-24 school year. So we are awarded $75,000. And we've talked about and we've heard from many family members about a need for another SRO. So we are hopeful that we are going to be able to accomplish that. And hats off to Mr. Mirabelli for helping out with that and making that happen. And finally, I'm going to come back to focus and excellence and how we focus on the actions that produce results. And I did talk a lot about academics in the beginning, but it also means Carline to the key performance indicators that I mentioned here. It means mock trial, orchestra, CSE Kids Club to wrestling, second quarter math below 65 to second fall college persistence rates. I mention all these things because focus just doesn't mean on the academics. It is important. Don't mistake that. That is a key indicator. However, what makes Abington Heights strong is what our students' representatives talked about. Our students have a very holistic approach to education. They are involved in many activities and clubs where they learn lessons that they may not otherwise learn in the classroom. They learn how to compromise, to settle differences, to help each other out when they're feeling down and they're losing by 20, or where they're in second place headed to the finals. These are all important aspects that we focus on. And we will continue to redefine and exceed expectations as our goal. So that wraps up our midpoint presentation, goals presentation. If there are any questions, Maggie will entertain them.
Is that called passing the buck?
to the education assessment. Okay, so we've seen growth in both English and math, which is great, but we've also seen the percentages from first quarter to second quarter, you know, number of students that went down below 65%. What about, you know, yes, we've had growth, but what about those students that say were Bs are now Cs, or what, you know, what are we doing? Are we recognizing that data and looking to help them out individually also, like we are doing with the ones that are below the 65%? Is that part of it?
Sure, go ahead.
I was directing it to you, Matt, because and Chris would.
Yeah, no, I love doing that every now and then.
Every now and
Punt,
then.
punting is a great skill.
Every now and then. Okay. I would say that although I don't have data on that to say how many students slid back, let's say a letter grade, our high school does a really nice job of academic counseling and working with students to make sure that they keep that rigor up, but also their performance. So I would say at the individual classroom level, but also at the leadership of Mrs. Tioni and her administrative team, they are very focused on making sure students sustain that level of excellence. But I don't have data points to speak on that.
Any other questions? Okay, with that, we're going to pivot and ask for public comment. We have four people that have expressed interest in talking. If there are more, please give Mrs. O'Day a card or just let us know. We ask you come up, identify yourself, where you live, and we ask you limit your comments to approximately 3 minutes. That being said, the first card I have is Rebecca Stokes.
Hello. Rebecca Stokes. I live on Maple Avenue in Park Summit. And I do have a few questions for you. With the ESSER grants that we did receive, I believe that was a few $1 million. If we are tiering our children, and are we not trying to increase the mental health or the special needs department? Is it true that if we do that, we can increase tax indexes by increasing mental health? And I would just like clarity on that. You know, what's the reason that we have to, there's special stipulation to keep those grants, and I believe it's putting children in tiers or tiering them for mental health or special needs. So is that a potential here that we're trying to increase special education so that we get more money?
No, I'm searching to MTSS tier.
Yeah, that's what I'm connecting it to.
No, I think it may be, on how we report, it's called Act 16.
Okay.
Oh, how they broke it out.
I think that's what you might be referring to.
We're going to take a crack at your question, okay? And you're going to hopefully provide us with some clarity if we're a little off.
So I'm assuming when you're referring to tiering, you're talking about the Act 16 sort of cost per special education student report? So we have to report to the state what bucket of cost a special ed student falls into? Is that what you're referring to?
Well, there's like the tier 2, tier 3.
Yes, yes.
No, I think you're talking about MTSS.
Oh, okay, all right, so different tiers.
Yeah, you can take this one, all right. Yeah. All right,
We're
with the
sorry.
second time here, I think we have it. When tiers, there's tiers in funding and tiers in this, but okay.
So we tier students, not students, but programming. So tier 1 is what we offer all students. It's that core programming. So it would be the ELA curriculum and programming. It would be school counselor lessons in the classroom. Then tier 2 is for your students who are strategic and have a higher level of need. So it might be group counseling, it might be pull-out math support or pull-out reading support. Then you have your tier 3 supports, which is really a small percentage of your students that are really very intensive. So that might be individual counseling on a weekly basis, or one-on-one support, or special education identification. Just because you're in tier 2 or 3 does not mean that you're identified special education. And I would say I don't know the connection to the ESSER grant, so you might have to help me with that. But this is a program. It used to be IST, then it was RTII, now it's the MTSS program, which is a multi-tiered support system. It predates pandemic, predates ESSER funds. So I don't know the connection that you're making, but I don't believe they are connected.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if we were, if we're trying to increase special education, getting more grants, more funding, and by us, tiering children in a worse, putting them in a worse, because we're hiring a lot of counselors, we're hiring a lot of, special education, and to me, it's a little bit, why are we doing this? And it looks, that we're trying to place kids in a worse tier to try to increase the special education or mental health, so that we get more funding, or to, it just is a little bit gray.
I think I know what you're talking about, and what I would say is no, we're not trying to promote or over-identify, and in one of my presentations, I provided some data that we are below the state average, and I think that probably adversely impacts us from a state funding standpoint. The tricky part, and I try to nuance this when I talk, is that we have seen increases in enrollment. So if you just look at the number of students, you may say, well, why is the number of students increasing? Well, we've got more students, but our percentage is still below the state average. So we wouldn't be doing that.
How will we be paying for, I know there's a lot of building improvements that we're talking about, and things to the middle school, and is there an agenda for that, a proposal? How are we gonna pay for those things?
Great question, and the answer is, at this point, that's not even on the table, meaning what we want to do is first identify the priorities. Okay, there's a whole lot of areas that need improvement. As a board and public, we need to solicit feedback. We need to take a look at the high priorities, the intermediate, and the low priorities, and then line that up. And like you said, if I had $500 million, then we would do it all. But we don't have anything close to that. So, we're going to take what these highest priorities, and oftentimes that's health and safety. What doors, ventilation, things like that we need to fix. So.
Just as a comment, your question about bringing more students in, I'm not sure if you weren't referring to Dr. Schaefer's chart. I think what he was referring to is the charter school enrollment. And essentially, every time a student leaves our district for a charter school, we are required to pay that charter school a fixed dollar amount. So to the extent we bring them back, it saves us money.
Is it around like $11,000 or $12,000?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So it's a big number, and if you look at our costs associated with charter schools and cyber charter schools, it's something like doubled.
Yeah. If you read any of the article, there's been plenty of surveys about from educators, particularly superintendents, and this is the number one issue facing all school boards and school districts is there is no universal formula for charter school tuition. And so this is something that all school boards are facing, and why so many of the boards have gone along the advocacy pathway to make sure the state can shore this up.
I would also add, when you look at the test scores, the cyber charter schools literally are at the bottom of the state. So when our students go to cyber charter schools and we are paying for it, we're paying for a lesser product. So again, it's our hope to improve their educational process by bringing them back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jen, I'm going to get your last name wrong. Mr. Abdullah, I'm going to ask you to.
That's okay. My students call me Mrs. P, so you could just go with that. Jen Patrica, I live at 507 Bryan Drive, neighbors on both sides here. Thank you for all that you guys do, your time and hard work. We really appreciate it. I'm here on behalf of a lot of the parents behind me for the baseball team, and apologize, but a lot of the parents are at the basketball game, so they couldn't all be here to show their support, but they are behind us here. So to give some feedback, regarding what are some things that we're looking for within our district, and knowing that, education is important, but also to have that holistic approach to our students. Our baseball field is in dire need of a revamp. 2 years ago, we were told as a team, I have a son that's a sophomore in college, one that's a senior, and one that's a freshman at Abington. And 2 years ago, we were told that we were maybe going to be getting a turf baseball field, and the adjoining field hockey field was also going to be getting turf. I'm a 1992 graduate of Abington Heights, I'm proud to say, and I don't think that anything has really been done to either one of those fields. And I know from playing field hockey that the field takes on a lot of water. I know from walking across that field to get to the baseball field, it takes on a lot of water, and our baseball field takes on a lot of water. So I have a list, the outfield, the infield, home plate, saturated with water. That water creates divots and ruts and becomes dangerous then when a ground ball is hit and takes a bad bounce, and the player's not expecting it, and it could become dangerous. Also, because now we have snow on the ground, most of our games early on have to be planned to be away, because our field is never ready because of the water situation. So we're traveling early on away games. Our first home game is 3/27, and it's probably not going to be ready. We're probably going to have to switch that because we're going to have water still sitting on from the snow. Our booster club, who we do a great job of raising our own money, but our booster early on, we pay to use the Rail Riders facility and the University of Scranton to play. We're supposed to play at the University of Scranton tomorrow. So our booster pays to use those facilities on behalf of our children, because our field is not ready and it's not playable early on in the season. Baselines are hard. The dirt is hard. That could be, treacherous for sliding. But it also takes on water because the ground is so hard that it can't absorb the water. I've also been told that we get very little maintenance on the field, and sometimes football practices on it, and then that creates an issue with the football players damaging the field and that not being worked on. And lastly, I'll leave you with this. As a teacher in a fellow district, for years, our baseball field was neglected, and the parents kept complaining, and predominantly drainage again, and it's now for many years not playable. So our team is forced to pay a facilities usage at another field, and our baseball players do not get to play at their home field, and it's been like that for about 3 or 4 years. So, we just wanted to shed some light and hope that you, make it part of your, study, and we know that other things certainly are going to be more important, but, we definitely need some help on the field. Thank you.
Jen, thank you. I'm going to ask the board members to hold any comments on this, because we've got 3 other people that want to speak about the topic, and then perhaps we can offer comments.
Okay.
So the next would be Megan Locker.
Hi, Megan Locker. I live on Woodcrest Drive in South Abington Township. I also graduated from Abington, played softball, courts. I'm very proud to be a student athlete. Buried somewhere under here is an athlete. But my sons do play baseball. I'm a volunteer coach for softball. Little has been done since I graduated in '97 on those fields. For softball, we used to just have a metal bench. Now they have the concrete block dugouts. But it has been a problem for a very long time. And I'm just up here just to say it's a disgrace. You know, it's embarrassing when you play these other teams. And I'm proud to be from here and have gone here. But then when you go to these other facilities and they are the way they are, I just challenge you guys, you should really go to other facilities, whether it's baseball fields, softball fields, field hockey, what have you, and literally see what our kids play on. And I just challenge you to see, you know, how we can make improvements to not be embarrassed, I guess. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Marty Nazar, I saved the best for last. Please don't disappoint us.
My voice may go before that point, but ladies and gentlemen, my name is Martin Nazar. I live on 413 Winola Road with my pretty wife behind me in the yellow and our junior son, who is a baseball player. And as many discussions have gone along this line before, the field, well, we'll back up a little bit. I'll make this short and sweet. Playing through T-ball Little League at the Ackley facilities up there, I mean, we fought and battled up there for many, many years for one little miracle that just recently happened. Lights.
We got lights.
Yeah, and it was, my neighbor who was behind me was probably the #1 person spearheading that whole issue, and he did an amazing job. But it took some time, and we understand this is going to take some time too. But there's safety issues there that need to be addressed. The drainage, #1, is a problem. And I've always said, in this latitude here, trying to begin a baseball season in March is going to be virtually impossible on any kind of dirt and grass field. You look at Pittston area's field, having the turf infield, it's a game changer, no pun intended. So you as the board, if we could just ask you for a little bit of time and a little bit of money, and maybe get the right people on this project to look at improving this field. And being involved in this sport with my son for many, many years, I've heard it from I don't know how many different people. We've played from New York into Maryland. You make a lot of friends with these travel leagues and little leagues. And why is Abington's field like it is? I mean, and it is kind of hurtful, and we just wonder, response I give, I don't know. I don't know. So we just ask you that maybe we can do something about it and bring that baseball field up to the level that I think the Abington School District deserves. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other public comments? Anyone else want to speak? Okay. Anyone on the board would like to talk to these topics? Mr. Azar, you're
Oh, we did?
What did they say?
very good. Mr. Azar.
Sure, I'll say a few things. First, I want to just say that the football team doesn't practice on the baseball field anymore. But you're right on everything else that you said. And we did last year, and we tore it all up. So when the turf was put in 2 years ago, that's where the freshman team used to practice. And so everything got juggled when that happened, and it was a bad experiment. But this past year, we at least fixed that. No, it's still, you can still tell there's some footprints out there. There's no doubt. And I appreciate all the comments that everybody came tonight. I'm very happy to hear these comments coming from the public, and I know that you guys are expressing the feelings that a lot of people feel. It's one of the primary reasons why, and I'm only speaking for myself, it's one of the primary reasons why I got on the school board, is because I see what other school districts have done with their extracurricular facilities and with their school facilities, their academic facilities. And we are in a competition with other school districts. We really are, for the best talent and for the future of the school district. So you have to pair that with, it's really hard to pay for a lot of this stuff. And I won't get into all the budget issues that we face. But there's a lot of creative ways to go about it. And I'm excited that you're here today. I'm also excited that we now have, we have a lot of committees on the board. There's an extracurricular committee meeting tomorrow night. And the primary topic on the agenda, and this usually wasn't, I shouldn't say usually, it really was discouraged to even be talked about. That's the feedback that I got from a lot of and it's not just sports. Go walk in the auditorium, right? There's lots of our facilities that need help. But the culture was, don't talk about it. So we spearheaded and asked for the leaders of the clubs and the activities and the sports, the coaches, to give feedback on what would you do if we could do anything, right? What's your wish list? And not to say that we can do it all at once or that we can even do it all, but we are in the process of putting together a list of wants and needs, right? The needs are first, obviously, for all of our facilities, not just sports, but all of our extracurricular facilities, to sort of go along with all the work that was done in the facility study, which really didn't, and that was done on purpose. It really was not part of the mandate for them to look at those facilities, because we wanted to focus on the academic facilities first. But it's definitely a topic that we're talking about, and I agree with everything that everybody said, that it's a big need. And I think that we have, this is just me speaking, I think we have an obligation to start to do some of these things, and the stuff that you mentioned tonight is very important, so thank you.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes, I too agree with Mr. Azar. This has been an ongoing conversation and discussion about our boys' baseball field and our girls' softball field for many years. I was a baseball booster mom many years ago. My son was right field. Vortex spikes were always needed. But to also, we had great teams, we had great coaches. This is a great opportunity for us. I welcome all parents to continue to come to these kinds of meetings and express your needs and concerns. I've been working really hard over the years, unsuccessfully, to redo and get better fields and facilities. I was a player in getting the new turf field and the track, and it has been ongoing. Boys' baseball field has been, the water issues have been going on for years. There was a year where us parents were able to apply for some kind of funding from PNC Field. If we had the worst, ugliest field, PNC Field and all their maintenance team would come up to the school district that won. Well, Abington Heights won. And they redid our field in 2013. And we had a great year for 1 year, and then it went back again. So I welcome all of you to continue to come. This is the stuff that helps us board directors to make these decisions and find the funding, because it is a safety concern now. We were fortunate to get dugouts with fences redone by our masonry program, and that was 4 or 5 years ago, and we finally got the fencing for that and the painting. So this is, our baseball field has been a project for a long time. So I welcome you to continue to come and put pressure on us to get the funds to redo our fields. Thank you.
Mrs. Karam?
I just wanted to say thank you for coming out. I graduated in 1999, and I speak for myself. I ran for the board for similar reasons. My parents moved to this district because it was, you know, the top in academics, but it was also, I mean, it was just this, think of the alma mater, like this beacon on the hill kind of scenario, right? And I echo your concerns that we're not doing enough to keep it that way and to reinvest in our students, and that means reinvesting in where they spend the majority of their time. So thanks, guys.
Thank you. Soccer dad, Do you have anything to say?
I just echo Rod's.
Oh, please.
If I get going, you guys aren't gonna stop me. You're gonna escort me out. So,
It has been a dull night, so,
yeah,
go
I'm
ahead.
gonna keep my mouth shut. I agree with
We'll
Rod,
keep
but
it dull.
times 10.
I'd just like to make a couple comments. When you look around this board, it's pretty interesting. A lot of the board members, number one, are here because of their concern about the facilities, the overall facilities. But there are a lot of athletes and a lot of athlete parents. Certainly, Dr. Abdullah down at the end there, and so on. We've all been there, and we've all, as parents, suffered through some of these things. I didn't have a baseball player, I had soccer players, and we had exactly the same problem. So it is a need. It's part of the facility study that we've been through. What we need to do now is we're basically reviewing that facilities committee with the community, and we're really looking for feedback. I absolutely encourage all of you to fill out the facilities survey with your comments. That's going to be very important. I think it's a time to be proactive, but certainly to the extent we have funds and have established the right priorities, we're going to do what we can. But it will all get down to what funds we have and what priorities we have. And we're going to be faced with some very, very tough decisions, turfing fields or, classroom improvements, things like that, decisions that you shouldn't have to make, but that's where we are. And we're going to do the very best we can for all of you, and your comments matter greatly. And I would encourage you to continue to be proactive. I'd encourage you to get former Abington baseball players involved and to offer their input as well. Thank you all very much for your comments. Okay. Let's move on to action discussion items. Dr. Schaefer, I know, is ready to go.
That's right.
Excuse me.
That's, or you.
First item is the treasurer's report. Mr. Burdensky.
Yes, February's treasury report, we started the cash balance at the beginning of February at $23,993,967. We had monthly revenues of $2,478,554, which over 40% of that revenue was from the basic state subsidy. We only had net disbursements of $4,063,727, and that leaves us with a cash balance for March of $22,408,794.
Thank you very much, Mr. Batansky. I'd ask for a motion to approve the treasurer's report and approve the bills that were circulated.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion?
I have a quick question on the budget analysis for February 2020. The revenue from the student activities. I'm just looking back at the year 2021-22. It was budgeted $50,000, and we received the actual funds received was $69,000. Last year we budgeted $115,000, and we've to date received $234,000. Where does this revenue come from?
So the large portion, the largest portion of what you're seeing in that current year is payment for sponsorship from Lehigh Valley, Lehigh Valley Health Network. There was a timing of payment issue, so we do have 2 years worth of revenue from Lehigh Valley in the current year. The other areas in which you would derive revenue would be ticket sales, largely.
So what do we, so for the following year, do we take that budgeted money and do we just roll it over, or do we put it towards student activities?
I mean,
So what do we do with the funds, the extra funds that we're receiving?
so they're currently going into the the general fund, and the annual amount happens to be approximately the amount of the additional sports that were added at the end of last fiscal year.
So they are going to the student activities. The funds are going, they're staying with the student activities.
You can look at it that way. I mean, it's, no one has made a direct, allocation for that, but it just so happens to be the same amount as the additional sports that have been added.
Right.
Thank
This-
you.
Yeah, just to clarify something, and that'd be something that we work with Mr. Mirabelli and the extracurricular committee to bring up to the board, because it's not yet as determined, as Mr. Mirabelli said, is when we signed on the Lehigh Valley agreement, we have funds coming in. And what happened almost simultaneously was the approval of more sports that had a cost. So, if we choose to allocate for something else, then we're gonna have to fill in that gap. That's not to be determined tonight, but that's what we're trying to figure out.
Yeah, I was just wondering about that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs.
Yes.
Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Medensky?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
8-0.
Okay, now Dr. Schaefer.
There we go. Mr. Acker, I'd ask that the board consider a motion to approve the personnel report as presented.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call?
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Medensky?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
8-0.
Okay, Mr. Acker, I'd ask that the board approve the March 2023 volunteer list.
So, second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Medensky?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
8-0.
Mr. Acker, I'd ask that the board approve the estimated budget proposal for the high school musical production staff roles and responsibilities for Annie.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call?
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Medensky?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
8-0.
Before we move on, it's just a gratuitous plug. If you are not doing anything, or what you should be doing on April 14th, 15th, or 16th, is going to the high school and seeing the wonderful production from our students and staff of Annie. You can go as many times as you want, and you can buy as many tickets as you want. Please support our arts program. Mr. Acker, asks the board approve the Abington Heights accounts payable receivable clerk job description.
So moved.
Second.
On the motion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Abdallah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Medensky?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
8-0.
Mr. Acker, asks that the board approve the stipulation council agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. On the motion, I'll start with Mr. Medensky.
I'm getting used to docs, and for some reason, when I called up the agenda, this wasn't on my copy, so I have no clue what this is.
This is the Weiss agreement.
Okay.
Yep. We had a last minute word change from an attorney, so we pulled off one and then we put on the amended one.
And how late was that in the day?
4:30. We had it posted for 20, yeah, we had it posted yesterday and then,
I came in about 4.
yeah. So if you, yeah. Yeah.
I looked at it this morning, so that's why I missed it.
Yep.
I understand. That's it.
Other comments?
Yeah.
I would just like to make a comment about this. This stipulation agreement is going to cost the school district something in the neighborhood of $630,000, which is more than almost 2 mills of taxes. And it's because one of the local businesses decided to take advantage of the crazy real estate market that Lackawanna County is going through. They are basically taking money out of us that we have to replace. And you know, when people wonder why we're looking so hard at our budget and things like that, it's because of situations like this that are really created by the real estate tax circumstances in the county. So I am going to be voting for this truly with my nose, with my fingers on my nose, because I don't like this, but this is the best agreement we could come up with, and I commend our administration for getting a good deal in this, given the circumstances. Roll call, please.
Mr. Abdullah?
Yes.
Mr. Azar?
Yes.
Mrs. Henderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Karam?
Yes.
Mr. Medensky?
Yes.
Mr. Robeson?
Yes.
Mrs. Tierney?
Yes.
Mr. Acker?
Yes.
8-0.
We apologize for the delay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I think you just,
She's getting, she's had 3 satisfactory.
I know, no, I'm just saying, okay.
I think you just acknowledge it.
Yeah, you just.
Yep. After much discussion, we have decided to call out Samantha Pasternak, give her some kudos for earning tenure. We do have a pathway for that in Pennsylvania, and she has successfully done so, and we have approved it. So congratulations to Samantha.
Thank you. With that, we have a number of items of informational of use of our facilities listed. And I would ask if there's any unfinished business, new business. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you all for attending.
But then when you go to view the agenda, if you, there's view agenda, and then there's view detailed agenda.
I always go to view detail, because then you can click on each
And then you have all the hyperlinks that you
Yeah,
can,
but was his presentation in that?
yes.
Where was it, though?
It was under detail, it was under detailed agenda.
Yeah,
Then you
that's
go
what I
on-
was on today.
Then you click onto the.
I'll
so
look, I'll
we-
look tomorrow.
Like, see, it would be like this. So if you click on detailed agenda, then here's what you click. You click the blue.
See, yeah, but